So you've definitely seen this thing in-game most, if not every single time you've logged into a match or logged into the game and actually started playing, and wondered what exactly it really does lore-wise, how it works, and things like that. So what exactly is mana? Well, to put it plainly, it's the resource that the gods draw power from. It's used to access many powerful abilities, at least that's what the wiki will more or less tell you, paraphrased. But see, the thing is, it's not a requirement for the gods to access their powers. Well, some of you are probably thinking, no snakes, right? There are characters like Cuchulainn who don't even have a mana bar itself, they use an entirely different resource. Well, he uses rage specifically, and then there are characters like a lot of the hunters, or even, to a degree, a good number of the warriors. Take Bellona, for instance, where their skills are using different types of weapons that you would think she could probably... Okay, maybe she doesn't exactly carry them all in those buttocks or underneath that armor, but even still, the weapons themselves don't seem to be particularly special in any sort of way. And really, she is a goddess, she's fairly powerful. It's not difficult to assume that she'd be able to carry a good number of hammer, a sword, a shield, and a whip fairly safely. As for the flag, maybe she does pull that out of her butt. Of course, that doesn't necessarily hold up for a lot of the mages, but you see, the thing is, the reason why I say mana isn't necessarily directly linked to the power of the gods, it isn't necessarily linked to the power of the gods, because you have the mage characters, and a lot of their basic attacks looks like it's some sort of magic or mythical essence, and if their power was exclusively drawn from mana, when you run out of mana, surely you wouldn't be able to throw basics, or those attacks should consume a tiny amount of mana. So that's probably connected to another form of strength. Okay, for someone like Zeus, where his weapon is the Master Bolt, and it's clearly defined as the Master Bolt, you could explain it away like that, but then when you look at someone like Discordia, Giannis, so on and so forth, there are plenty of examples of mages where it's not too clear whether they have a weapon or not besides their magical abilities, then it gets a little iffy. So let's go ahead and look at the real-world history of mana, shall we? We're going to be talking about it from two religions, or two mythologies, I suppose, but apparently one of these currently practiced religions might be offended if you actually call their religion a mythology. The Bible tells us of plenty examples or plenty of uses of mana. It's spelt with an extra N instead of M-A-N-A. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the story in which the Israelites were led by Moses through the desert. They were taken there and eventually needed food and water, things to actually help them survive and live. And the people started to doubt Moses, to doubt this God, to doubt the words that brought them into the situation. So Moses was eventually informed as to how God was eventually going to save his people. And so he allowed certain things to be rained down. Birds were accompanied by these things. The people slayed all of these birds and used them as meat. And then bread started to grow. Now, the people were told to only take as much bread as they would need for that specific day. Some complied, some didn't. Those that didn't comply with this found that the bread that they saved was full of maggots. After that, all of the people complied and were given enough bread each and every day from the heavens. God supplied them with food they needed to survive in the desert for a significant stretch of time. On the sixth day, however, they were to collect as much bread as they would need for the seventh day and the sixth day, thanks to it being the Sabbath. Now, the bread itself was actually called manna, a symbol of life. You could also consider it to be a symbol of strength in a sense, because it gave them the strength that they needed to survive in the desert to make their journey. And there are plenty of other examples in the Bible of Jesus providing people with this manna in a time of need, or provide them with some sort of strength, nourishment, or life, I suppose, in a sense. And so that's one origin of manna. Another, and one that's probably more connected to Smite specifically, is the Polynesian and or Menelaisian beliefs surrounding mana. They believe that mana is a sort of spiritual energy that may provide strength. It can be good, it can be evil, it can be dangerous, it can be beneficial. And people, objects, and spirits will naturally have mana. Now, the amount of mana that a person or an object can have within them or can use will vary depending on exactly what they are. For example, a mountain related to a deity will of course have a lot more mana than, say, a bird, for instance. Mana is also used as a way to define supernatural or just extraordinary things, such as uniquely shaped rocks, but I'm sure it would also be used to define things like natural disasters and things along those lines as well. Now, there have been many debates surrounding mana and whether it's present in other religions and mythologies, how it would work in those mythologies and religions and things like that, but a lot of those debates seem to be quite back and forth things between anthropologists. There's nothing all that concrete I can tell you from those things. I suppose it could help us to explain mana in this video if we go with the Polynesian explanation for mana. I'm not saying the Christian explanation for mana isn't applicable, but comparing the two, the Polynesian is more suited to explain the power source that helps the gods fuel their conflict, I feel. Now, anything past this point is pretty much tinfoil hat headcanon time, and I suppose that is one of the issues of doing lore for Smite. See, a lot of the game's lore is inspired by, or is exactly, the mythology or lore behind the god or character that's included into the game. Don't get it twisted though, there is actual story that Hi-Rez has created specifically for the game, but they tell it through outside media, like comics. Sure, they did actually include the Fall of War little sort of video series in the game for you to watch during that whole event, and you can actually go back on YouTube and watch those videos. But the first problem with Smite's story is that it's disconnected from the game itself. There's no panel that you can go in to view the comics and actually read up on the story yourself. You have to research and find it, and it's not necessarily immediately easy to find. It's not too difficult, but you kind of have to know what you're looking for. Other games that are MOBAs do make it a little more easy. For example, Dota has a little segment where they do make it easy for you to find lore for the game as well. I've not dug too deeply into it, but the fact that they added another segment to the game that has this little index codex style book thing that you can read about different areas of the lore in game, I thought was nice. Hi-Rez could have at least included that about the world. The only in-game lore that I know of that's actually in the game is the little paragraph or the few paragraphs that we'll get for each god, going over little lore segments for them, or just more of a descriptive paragraph about them if they're a god that doesn't have that much to say as far as their lore's concerned. And for some god, the fact that there just isn't that much to say about them is fair enough. They would be going into some fantasy territory there, or their own creative directions there, if they made a lot of lore for gods like this. But the thing is, Smite doesn't abide by all of the rules of all of the gods and where they're from. Smite doesn't abide by the rules of where one god is from specifically, or one pantheon is specifically. For instance, it seems to me that all the gods are able to die, or at least gods that wouldn't be able to die normally when they're within the stories or within the realms of their pantheons, stories, and myths and legends can die in Smite. Class A example of this is Zeus. Zeus took a massive beating within his mythological stories, and it was said that the gods were immortal, they couldn't die. Yet, Zeus can die from a little dagger treatment from Loki, and a bit of a battle, sure, but dagger treatment from Loki. Now, whether that's also thanks to the specific plot of the story that was going on, some of the balance being knocked out of the way, we didn't really know too much about what Hel was necessarily doing, or if it's genuinely possible for any one of the gods to die at any moment, if they're just unlucky enough, well, we don't know. A lot of the game's lore does come from tinfoil hat theory, headcanon style stuff. Unless you're going with strictly what you know from the mythology, from, say, the specific gods or the specific pantheons. But it's not too clear on how much of those mythologies and the rules of them are being used with Smite, and how much Hi-Rez is introducing of their own sort of creative efforts. But what do you think? Do you think Smite's version of Mana is a lot more simple than I'm making it out to be? Do you think it's a lot more complicated than I'm making it? Go ahead and let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave it a like if you felt like it deserves it. Subscribe to the channel as always if you're new here and want to see more content just like this. And till the next video, have a very good day. I have been Prime, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.